The rain had stopped, but the air was still heavy with moisture. As Lily crossed the wide marble courtyard of the Hale estate, her thin gardener's uniform sticking to her skin, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She had stayed too late pruning the roses near the fountain, not noticing the time. Slipping away, now the night had swallowed the gardens, and the only light came from the soft glow of the mansion's tall windows. Lily shivered as she bent to gather her tools, a small lantern flickering beside her. She cursed softly under her breath as her foot slipped on the wet stone, her arms flailing as she lost her balance. With a soft cry, Lily tumbled backward, straight into the cold water of the grand fountain. She gasped as the chill rushed over her, soaking her clothes, making them cling heavily to her body. Her heart pounded with panic. She scrambled out of the fountain, shivering and dripping the thin fabric of her blouse, nearly transparent under the moonlight. Her jacket lay abandoned on the stone bench, too soaked to help. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to preserve some shred of warmth and dignity, her face burning with humiliation. Suddenly the sound of footsteps echoed across the courtyard. Lily froze her breath, caught in her throat, as she turned to see a tall figure approaching from the shadows. Ethan Hale, billionaire, CEO, and master of the estate, strode toward her, his sharp features shadowed by the low light, his silver watch catching a glint of the moon. His tailored suit perfect as always, his eyes locked onto her with a piercing gaze. Lily's heart hammered in her chest. She had seen him only from afar over the past months, when he occasionally visited the estate, never speaking to her, never noticing the girl tending his gardens. Now here he was, his steps slow and deliberate, his expression unreadable. Lily's arms tightened around herself, her soaked blouse clinging to her every curve. She wanted to run, wanted to hide, but her legs would not obey. Ethan stopped a few feet away, his eyes sweeping over her wet, trembling figure. A dark brow arched in cool amusement, or was it suspicion? His voice low, smooth, cutting through the tense air. "Quite the scene you have made. Miss, who exactly are you, and what are you doing here at this hour?" His tone carried an edge of danger, a man used to control and suspicion. Lily's mouth opened, then closed, her voice caught in her throat. She stumbled over her words. I am just the gardener, sir. I was working late and I fell into the fountain. I am so sorry, please forgive me." Ethan's eyes narrowed, a hint of a smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. "The gardener," he repeated slowly, his gaze flicking over her again, his sharp mind working clearly. "You will excuse me for saying, miss, but you do not quite look like a gardener right now." Lily flushed deeper, her arms crossing tighter over her chest. She shook her head hastily. "No, sir. Truly, I work here. I am not supposed to be in your way." "I was just leaving." Ethan tilted his head, watching her with unsettling intensity. His next words soft, but laced with suspicion, or perhaps curiosity. "And yet here you are, half-soaked, half-dressed, and very much trespassing at night." Lily's breath hitched, tears pricked her eyes, not of guilt, but of sheer embarrassment and exhaustion. She had worked so hard to stay invisible, to keep her job, to send every penny home to her sick mother, and now here she was, looking like a fool in front of the man who owned everything she could never touch. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, the night air thick between them. Ethan's gaze softened slightly, a flicker of something unspoken in his eyes. Then, without another word, he shrugged off his expensive jacket, stepped forward, and draped it gently over Lily's shivering shoulders. His voice softened. "Stay here, I will get someone to help you." Lily blinked up at him, confused, overwhelmed by the gesture. She clutched the jacket around herself, her fingers trembling, her heart pounding as she watched the billionaire disappear into the darkness, leaving her alone by the fountain, wrapped in his warmth. Lily sat quietly on the edge of the stone bench, the weight of Ethan's expensive jacket heavy on her shoulders. The fabric was warm, still carrying his subtle scent, a mix of cedar and something darker, something that made her chest tighten. She pressed the jacket closer to herself, shivering from both the cold and the tension swirling inside her. She had not expected to meet the master of the estate tonight, let alone like this, soaked, embarrassed, nearly exposed under the pale moonlight. She thought back to the day she'd arrived here 6 months ago, clutching a folded flyer advertising a gardener position at the Hale estate. Lily had been desperate. Her mother was sick, their family bankrupt, their home gone. She had grown up surrounded by wealth, but after her father's business partner had betrayed them, everything had crumbled now. At 22, she was no longer the pampered daughter of privilege, but just a girl fighting to survive. She had no illusions about her place here. She tended the flowers, trimmed the hedges, kept her head down, and tried not to attract attention. It had worked until tonight. Ethan Hale was a name whispered in every newspaper headline, a billionaire entrepreneur who had built an empire from nothing. His sharp mind, ruthless strategies, and icy demeanor were legendary. Lily had only seen glimpses of him at the estate, tall, striking, with dark hair, touched by silver and steel-gray eyes that missed nothing. She had never imagined he would even know her name. Yet here he was. As Lily waited, she wrapped her arms around herself, trembling less from the cold now, and more from the anxiety that twisted through her chest. She could not afford to lose this job. She could not afford to anger this man. She needed every paycheck, every cent, to cover her mother's treatment. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to push away the flood of worry. Moments later, Ethan returned with a housekeeper, a kind older woman named Maria, who gasped softly upon seeing Lily's state. "Oh, child, what happened to you? Come, let me help you." Maria fussed gently, guiding Lily inside the grand house, wrapping her in a fresh towel, pressing a warm mug of tea into her hands. Ethan stood nearby, watching quietly, his arms crossed over his chest, his sharp gaze never leaving her. Lily mumbled her thanks, her voice barely above a whisper, her cheeks flushed with humiliation. When Maria left to fetch dry clothes, Ethan finally spoke, his voice low. "I will admit, Miss Lily, I was not expecting to find one of my gardeners swimming in my fountain. At midnight?" His lips curved faintly, but his eyes remained cool. "Tell me, why were you really out there?" Lily's heart pounded. She gripped the teacup tightly. Her words rushed out. "I was working, sir. I lost track of time. I fell. I promise. I meant no harm." Ethan studied her a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke again, softer this time. "You are new here. I take it you have not been with us long." Lily nodded nervously. 6 months, Sir Ethan tilted his head thoughtfully. "You are quite young for this work." Lily swallowed hard, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "I had no other choice." Sir Ethan's brow lifted slightly. "No choice. I wonder about that." Before she could respond, Maria returned with a set of dry clothes, guiding Lily to a guest room to change. When Lily emerged later, Ethan was gone, but his presence lingered in the house like a shadow. Lily thanked Maria again and slipped quietly back to the small staff quarters, her mind spinning what had just happened. Why had Ethan not fired her on the spot? Why had he helped her? Why had his eyes, when they softened for just a moment, made her feel something she could not name? The following days passed in a blur. Lily kept to herself, focusing on her work, tending the gardens, avoiding the mansion as much as possible. Yet she could feel it. Ethan's eyes on her, even when she could not see him. He appeared in the gardens, unexpectedly, his footsteps silent on the stone paths. He watched her work, his sharp gaze thoughtful, sometimes asking quiet questions about the flowers she planted, sometimes saying nothing at all. Lily's heart raced every time their eyes met. She tried to remind herself who he was, the distance between their worlds, the risks, but the longer it went on, the harder it became to ignore the pull. Lily began to notice little things. Ethan bringing her a cup of coffee on a cold morning. Ethan pausing to ask if she was eating well, if she was getting enough rest. Ethan walking her back toward the house after a long day under the sun, his hand resting lightly on her back. Lily tried to tell herself it meant nothing. A wealthy man indulging a passing curiosity, yet she could not deny how her chest tightened, how her cheeks flushed, how she dreamed of him at night. One evening near the end of her shift, Lily lingered by the fountain, watching the last light fade from the sky she had always loved. This time of day, the hush, the gold-pink glow of the sunset, the soft rustle of the trees as she reached to touch a blooming rose. A voice spoke from behind her, "You have a gift?" Lily. She turned quickly, her breath catching as she saw Ethan standing a few steps away, his hands in his pockets, his gray eyes steady on hers. "You bring life to this place," he said softly, "and I see more in you than you realize." Lily's throat tightened, her voice trembling. "I am just a gardener, sir." Ethan stepped closer, his smile faint but genuine. "No. Lily, you are much more." Lily's heart pounded as Ethan's words settled between them. "Much more." The phrase echoed in her mind as she stood frozen by the fountain, the last light of the sun painting gold across his sharp features. She wanted to believe he meant it kindly, but years of struggle had taught her not to trust pretty words. She swallowed hard, dropping her gaze back to the rose petals, brushing her fingers over the delicate bloom. "I just want to do my job, sir," she murmured. Ethan tilted his head, watching her quietly, his eyes thoughtful. Then, with a faint smile, he turned and walked away, leaving Lily standing in the fading twilight, clutching her heart as if it might burst. In the days that followed, Ethan's presence became a constant pull in Lily's world. He appeared unexpectedly in the gardens, asking small questions, watching her hands work, sometimes offering a rare smile or a quiet compliment. Lily tried to keep her distance, reminding herself that his attention was dangerous, that her heart was fragile, that nothing good could come of drawing too close. Yet every glance, every quiet word slipped past her defenses. She found herself watching for him, hoping for him. One afternoon, as Lily knelt by the flower beds, she felt a shadow fall over her. She glanced up, her breath catching as Ethan crouched beside her. His suit jacket discarded his sleeves, rolled his hair tousled from the breeze. "Teach me," he murmured, a soft smile touching his lips. "Show me what you see here." Lily's cheeks flushed, her fingers trembling slightly as she guided his hand over the soil, explaining the roots, the delicate balance the care required. Their hands brushed, and for a moment the world seemed to still. Ethan's eyes darkened just a shade, his breath soft against her cheek. Lily pulled back quickly, her heart hammering her chest, aching with a longing she barely understood. But not everything was soft moments and lingering glances. Ethan's world was sharp, cold, filled with rivals and shadows. One evening, Lily overheard a tense conversation between Ethan and his lawyer, voices low and urgent. "They are moving against us, Ethan. We need to tighten security. We cannot risk another leak." Ethan's jaw clenched, his eyes flicking toward the window where Lily stood, half hidden in the dusk. His voice softened for just a moment. "No one harms her. She stays safe." Lily's breath hitched. She slipped away quietly, her mind racing. Why was he protecting her? What did she mean to him? The next morning, Lily found herself summoned to Ethan's office, a rare occurrence. Her hands shook slightly as she knocked. Stepping inside, she was struck again by the contrast of their worlds. The sleek glass, the polished wood, the city skyline stretching beyond the windows. Ethan sat behind his desk, sharp-suited, his eyes dark and tired. Yet when he saw her, his expression softened. "Come sit." Lily perched nervously on the edge of the chair, her fingers twisting in her lap. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. "I know you have been wondering, Lily, why I watch you, why I care." Lily's throat tightened. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her heart pounding, Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "You remind me of someone," he murmured. "Someone I once cared for deeply. Someone I lost." His eyes flicked up to hers. and more than that. Lily, you make me believe there is still something good, something worth protecting in this world. Lily's breath caught tears pricking her eyes. She shook her head. I am no one, sir. I am just a gardener. Ethan smiled, faintly, his hand reaching across the desk, brushing her trembling fingers. No, Lily, you are not just anything. That night, Lily lay awake in her small room, her heart aching. Her mind spinning, she could not deny what she felt for Ethan, but fear wrapped tight around her chest, fear of falling, fear of losing, fear of the truth she had kept hidden for so long, the truth that her family's downfall was tied to Ethan's world, to Ethan's name. The next evening, as Lily worked quietly in the garden, she heard footsteps soft on the path. She turned, her breath catching as Ethan appeared, his gaze steady, his expression unreadable. Walk with me, he murmured. They strolled through the moonlit paths, silent. At first, then Ethan spoke softly. I know about your father. Lily froze, her chest tightening. She forced herself to meet his eyes. You do? Ethan nodded, his jaw clenched, his voice low. I know he was ruined by my family's associates. I know you have every reason to hate me. Lily shook her head, her eyes shining. I do not hate you, Ethan. I never have. Ethan's breath shuddered, his hand lifting to gently cup her face, his thumb brushing over her cheek. I do not deserve you, Lily, but I cannot stay away. His lips hovered just a breath from hers, his eyes dark with longing. Lily's heart pounded, her hands trembling, as she reached up, lightly touching his wrist. Then with a soft exhale, she closed the distance, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was soft, hesitant, filled with unspoken promises. Yet as their arms wrapped around each other, the world seemed to shift, the boundaries between them melting away. Lily felt the weight of years of loneliness slipping from her shoulders as Ethan held her, his touch gentle, his breath warm against her skin. They stood like that for what felt like forever, wrapped in moonlight and something deeper, something fragile, yet fierce. But even as they clung to each other, shadows loomed, the threats to Ethan's empire, the risks to Lily's safety, the weight of secrets still unsaid. They pulled apart slowly, their foreheads resting together. Ethan's voice, a whisper. I will protect you, Lily, whatever it takes. Lily's eyes shimmered, her hands cupping his face. I believe you, Ethan, but I also need to stand on my own. Ethan's smile was soft, bittersweet. We will stand together, Lily, always. The morning light spilled across the garden, casting a golden glow over the dew-damp grass. Lily stood quietly among the roses, her hands brushing the soft petals as she tried to steady her heart. The memory of the night before still clung to her skin, the feeling of Ethan's arms around her, the weight of his kiss, the whispered promise in his voice. She wanted to hold on to it, to believe in it, but the shadow of her past loomed large. Her father's downfall, the ruin of her family, the silent truth she had kept buried for so long, it hovered at the edge of her mind, threatening to shatter everything. As she worked, Lily caught sight of Ethan standing at his office window, watching her. His sharp gaze softened by something she could not quite name. She felt the flush rise to her cheeks, the ache in her chest. She knew she should walk away, protect herself before it was too late. Yet her feet stayed, planted, her fingers trembling slightly as she reached for another rose stem. She wondered if he knew, if he truly understood the full weight of their tangled histories. Later that afternoon, Ethan called her to the main house, his expression serious, his voice low when she entered Lily. Her heart jumped. She had never seen him like this. His suit jacket tossed aside, his sleeves rolled, his dark hair slightly tousled. He looked like a man carrying the weight of a world he could not control. Lily stepped closer, her voice soft. What is it? Ethan? Ethan exhaled, raking a hand through his hair. I have been digging into the past, into the deals, the betrayals, the wreckage left behind. Lily's breath caught, her fingers tightening at her sides. Ethan's eyes met hers, raw and unguarded. I know now exactly how your father's company fell. I know who orchestrated it and why, and Lily. It was not just bad luck. It was not just misfortune. It was a calculated move by someone close to me, someone I once trusted. Lily's heart pounded her chest tight with dread. She shook her head, her voice breaking. No, Ethan, you do not have to do this. Ethan stepped closer, his hands reaching for hers, his voice fierce. I do, Lily, because you deserve the truth, because we cannot build anything on lies. Lily's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, her voice trembling. I have tried so hard to survive, to stay invisible, to carry the burden alone. I never wanted you to bear it too. Ethan cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a tear. You do not have to carry it alone anymore. Lily, you never should have. Lily pressed her forehead to his, her breath shaky, her fingers gripping his shirt. I am scared, Ethan. I am so scared. Ethan's arms tightened around her, his voice a whisper. I know, Lily, but we face it together. In the days that followed, Ethan moved quickly, meetings, calls, investigations, his sharp mind working tirelessly to uncover the layers of betrayal. Lily watched quietly, from the edges, torn between awe and terror. She had known he was powerful, but seeing the full force of that power, turned toward protecting her, made her heart ache in ways she had never expected. Ethan had promised her he would fix it, but Lily feared the cost, feared what it might take from him, from them both. One evening, Ethan found her in the garden, kneeling among the lilies, her hands trembling slightly as she worked. Lily, he murmured, crouching beside her, his fingers brushing hers. It is done. I have the proof. Your father's name will be cleared, your family's honor restored. Lily's breath hitched, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Ethan smiled faintly, his eyes soft. This is just the beginning, Lily. We rebuild from here. But even as the weight lifted, new shadows emerged. Ethan's enemies struck back, lashing out in the media, in boardrooms, in whispered threats against those he loved. Lily found herself thrust into a storm. She had never imagined reporters camped outside the estate, strangers whispering her name, the quiet life she had known shattered by forces beyond her control. One night, as she sat curled on the edge of the bed, her knees drawn to her chest, Ethan knelt before her, his hands wrapping gently around hers, his voice low. I am sorry, Lily, I never wanted this for you. Lily shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. I just wanted to help my mother to survive. I never wanted to become a scandal. Ethan's eyes darkened with fierce resolve. We will face it, Lily, together. I will not let them hurt you. But Lily's heart twisted with fear, her voice barely a whisper. I am not strong enough for this, Ethan. I do not belong in your world. Ethan's hand lifted to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing softly over her skin. You are stronger than you know, Lily. You have faced more than most, and still you stand. That is what I see when I look at you. That is why I cannot let you go. Lily's breath caught her hands trembling as she reached for him, pulling him close, her voice breaking. Then, do not let me go. Ethan, do not ever let me go. They held each other through the night, the storm raging around them. Yet within that small space, they carved a fragile peace, a promise of something more, of something worth fighting for. The night was thick with tension, the mansion's halls unusually quiet, as Ethan stood by the tall window overlooking the gardens, his sharp profile outlined by the moonlight. He clenched his fists, his mind racing through the chaos unraveling around them. The news had broken earlier that evening, the media swarming with headlines not just about his corporate battles, but about her Lily, the shy gardener, the woman everyone was now calling his secret lover, his hidden scandal. His heart twisted painfully. He had sworn to protect her, and yet here they were, her name smeared across tabloids, her privacy shattered. Downstairs, Lily sat alone in the library, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, the soft glow of the fireplace casting shadows across her pale face. She had been strong these past weeks, holding herself together through every storm, but tonight, the cracks were showing tears trace silent paths down her cheeks, her fingers clenched in her lap. She thought of her mother, her family, her quiet life now torn apart by the weight of Ethan's world. When Ethan entered the room, Lily looked up, her eyes red, her breath shaky. He crossed to her quickly, sinking to his knees before her, his hands reaching for hers. "Lily, I am so sorry." His voice was raw, unguarded. "I wanted to shield you from this. I never wanted to pull you into my chaos." Lily shook her head, her voice trembling. "Ethan, you tried. You gave me more than I ever thought I could. Have you believed in me when no one else did? But I cannot watch you destroy yourself over me." Ethan's jaw tightened, his eyes dark with fierce determination. "I am not letting you go, Lily. Not now. Not ever." Suddenly, the door burst open. Maria, the housekeeper, rushed in, her face pale, her voice urgent. "Ethan, the press is outside. They are demanding a statement. They are saying she is the reason your company is collapsing." Ethan's eyes flashed with anger, his arms tightening protectively around Lily. "Enough." He hissed, his voice like steel. "They will not touch her. Not another word." Lily clung to him, trembling, her heart pounding. "Ethan, you cannot fight them all." Ethan pulled back, cupping her face, his voice soft but unshakable. "Watch me, Lily, watch me." Within the hour, Ethan stood before the gathered reporters, his broad shoulders squared, his sharp suit immaculate, his expression hard. He spoke calmly, deliberately. "I will answer your questions, but you will leave Lily out of this. She is not a scandal. She is not your headline. She is the woman I love." His words sent a ripple through the crowd, reporters gasping, cameras flashing. Ethan's voice softened only slightly as he continued. "Lily has stood by me with more strength and grace than anyone I've ever known, and I will not allow her to be torn down by your games." Inside the mansion, Lily watched from the window, her hands pressed to the glass, her breath catching as she heard his words. "The woman I love." Her heart swelled with an ache so fierce it left her trembling. She had never asked for this, never dreamed of it. And yet here was Ethan laying bare his heart, his reputation, his power, all for her. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she pressed her forehead to the cool glass, whispering his name. When Ethan returned inside, his shoulders sagged with exhaustion, yet his eyes searched for her. The moment they found each other across the hall, Lily ran to him, her arms flinging around his neck. Her voice choked. "Ethan, I do not deserve this. I do not deserve you." Ethan crushed her close, his voice breaking. "Lily, do not ever say that you deserve everything. You are everything." But even as they clung to each other, the storm was not over. Ethan's enemies were not defeated. The financial attacks continued. The threats escalated one night. As Ethan reviewed documents in his office, Lily slipped quietly inside, her fingers trembling. She held out a small envelope, her voice barely a whisper. "I am leaving." Ethan froze, his chest tightening. "Lily, please, no." She stepped closer, tears shining in her eyes. "I cannot watch you burn for me. I cannot be the reason you lose everything." Ethan surged to his feet, his hands wrapping around hers, his voice fierce. "You are not leaving, Lily. You are the reason I fight. You are the reason I want to win." Lily's tears fell freely, her voice shaking. "Ethan, I am so scared." Ethan pressed his forehead to hers, his voice a ragged whisper. "I am scared too, Lily, but I am more scared of losing you." They stood locked together, hearts pounding, breaths mingling as they clung to the fragile thread between them. The world outside roared, and yet in that small space they were just Lily and Ethan. Two souls fighting for a love neither had expected, but both now could not live without. The morning dawned gray and heavy, the sky thick with clouds that threatened rain. Lily stood at the edge of the garden, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as she watched the city skyline beyond the mansion's walls. She felt the weight of everything pressing down on her, the headlines, the whispered rumors, the sharp looks from strangers who once ignored her. She had wanted a simple life, tending flowers, sending money home, caring for her mother. Now she was a name on every screen, every headline, the woman tangled in the billionaire scandal. Behind her, she heard footsteps, the quiet sound of Ethan approaching. She felt his presence before she saw him, his warmth, his strength, the quiet way he watched her without forcing her to speak. Lily turned slowly, her breath catching at the sight of him, his suit slightly rumpled, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Yet when his gaze met hers, it softened every time. "Lily, I know this is not what you wanted." His voice was low, rough-edged. "But I need you to know, this is not what I wanted, either." Lily shook her head, her voice trembling. "Ethan, none of this should have happened. You were fine before me, you had your empire, your power, your name. Now look at everything falling apart." Ethan crossed the space between them, his hands reaching to cradle her face gently. "Lily, listen to me. I was not fine before you. I was alone. I was cold. I built walls so high no one could climb them. But you slipped past all of it. And now I cannot go back." Tears welled in Lily's eyes, her hands trembling as she clutched his wrists. "Ethan, I love you. I love you so much. But I am terrified that I will watch you lose everything because of me." Ethan shook his head fiercely, his thumb brushing away her tears. "Do not you dare think that, Lily. Do not you dare think you are a burden. You are the only thing that makes any of this worth fighting for." But just as they clung to each other, the next blow came, the betrayal they never saw coming. Ethan's most trusted advisor, a man he had known since his early days, turned against him, leaking sensitive information to the media, signing secret deals. Behind his back, Ethan's company reeled the stock, plummeting the board, demanding answers. Ethan stood at the center of the storm, his jaw clenched, his fists tight. Lily watched in horror as the man she loved fought to hold everything together. One night, as Ethan sat in his office, the weight of the world on his shoulders, Lily entered quietly, her small hands resting on his shoulders, her voice soft. "Ethan, please come to bed. You have not slept in days." Ethan shook his head, his voice rough. "I cannot, Lily. Not now." Lily knelt beside him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Ethan, look at me, please." He turned his face toward her, his eyes shadowed and raw. "I am losing everything. Lily, I am losing the empire I built from nothing." Lily's hands cupped his face, her voice trembling. "Ethan, listen to me. You are not your company. You are not your wealth. You are not your name. You are the man who held me when I was broken, who fought for me when no one else would, who taught me to believe in something again. If you lose everything else, you still have me, if you want me." Ethan's breath hitched, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her close. His voice breaking. "Lily, I want you. I want only you." The next morning, Ethan called a press conference. His decision made, he stepped before the cameras, his sharp suit impeccable, his voice calm. "I am stepping down as CEO to focus on rebuilding what matters to me. My family, my life, my future. I will no longer play these games." His eyes flicked to Lily, standing quietly at the side of the room, her heart pounding, her breath caught in her chest. That night they stood together on the balcony overlooking the city, the wind cool against their skin. Lily leaned into Ethan, her head resting on his shoulder, her voice soft. "What happens now?" Ethan wrapped his arms around her, his lips brushing her hair. "Now, Lily, we build something new, something real, something just for us." Lily smiled through her tears, her fingers curling into his shirt. "I am ready, Ethan. I am scared, but I am ready." Ethan's arms tightened, his voice fierce. "We will face it all. Lily, together, always." The sun rose gently over the hills, casting a soft glow across the Hale estate, where everything had changed, yet somehow found its peace. Lily stood quietly in the garden, the cool breeze brushing her hair, as she gazed out at the flowers she had planted months ago. They had survived the storms, the shifting seasons, the heavy rains, and here they were, standing tall, blooming defiantly. She smiled softly, her heart full, her hands resting over her chest. She could hear the faint footsteps behind her, the familiar sound that always made her heart lift. Ethan approached slowly, his eyes warming the moment they fell on her. He wore no suit today, just a soft shirt, sleeves rolled back, his hair tousled from the wind. Lily turned to face him, her cheeks flushing slightly as he reached for her hand, his fingers lacing gently through hers. He pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, his voice low and steady. "It has been a long road, Lily, but we made it." Lily leaned into him, her voice trembling slightly. "I never thought I would find this, Ethan. Not after everything. Not after all the fear, all the loss." Ethan smiled faintly, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "You taught me something. Lily, you taught me that love is not about what we own or control. It is about what we give up willingly, what we risk for the sake of someone else." Lily's eyes shimmered with tears, her heart tightening as she gazed up at him, her voice a whisper. "You risked everything for me." Ethan shook his head, his arm slipping around her waist. "No, Lily, we risked everything for each other, and we came out stronger because of it." They stood together in the quiet garden, the world stretching wide before them, the past. Behind them, the future unwritten yet full of possibility. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the scent of the flowers, the soft rustle of the trees, the steady rhythm of Ethan's heartbeat against her cheek. She had never imagined this life, never dreamed she could rise from the ashes of her family's ruin, to find something so rare, so fierce, so true. When she opened her eyes, Ethan was watching her, his gaze tender, his expression open and unguarded. He reached into his pocket, drawing out a small box. Lily's breath caught her hands, trembling slightly as he opened it, revealing a simple yet beautiful ring. Ethan's voice softened as he dropped to one knee, his gray eyes shining with emotion. "Lily, you saved me in ways I cannot explain. You taught me to believe again in love, in hope, in a future that is more than just power or wealth. Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving to you that you are my everything?" Tears slipped down Lily's cheeks as she nodded, her voice breaking with joy. "Yes, Ethan, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, rising to sweep her into his arms, their lips meeting in a kiss that spoke of every heartbreak they had survived, every storm they had weathered, every promise they would now keep. They held each other tightly, the garden blooming around them, the sun warming their skin, the world waiting before them. And so, their story did not end, but truly began, a story of two souls who had found light in the darkest corners of their lives, who had risked everything for love, who had learned that sometimes the greatest wealth is not found in power or fortune, but in the quiet, unwavering presence of someone who stands beside you. No matter what, the message lingered in the air, soft and true. Sometimes love blooms not where we plan, but where we dare to heal.